Hi team, I hope you're all well. Today I am going to do my January wrap up. This is going to be a long one, I think. I'm hoping it's not too long. I'm kind of on a bit of a time limit here. I'm trying to record this as fast as I can, but obviously tell you what I liked about these books or what I disliked about these books. I read 29 books in total in January. I think that's correct anyway. Yeah, 29 books in the month of January, which is a lot, and I wouldn't mind. A lot of these are pretty big books as well. So let's get into it. Only one of these is a graphic novel. I also DNF'd one or two books. I can't remember how many I DNF'd, but I DNF'd a couple books as well. Those I won't bother telling you about, I don't think, because I can't really remember what they were, to be perfectly honest. So the first book that I finished in the month of January was Monstrous Volume 1, which is a graphic novel. This is a steampunk graphic novel and I enjoyed it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it, but I was confused quite a lot throughout this. I will continue with the series. I thought the illustrations were gorgeous. The story was quite hard hitting in the bits that I did understand, but I just thought it was really, really good. There's a lot going on, plenty of dialogue, so it took me longer than I thought it would to get through, but I enjoyed it. It was good, but I was confused. I don't know if there's some timelines that we might be jumping to and from without really much indication of that. So yeah, 3 out of 5 stars. It was good, but I will continue with the series. I did enjoy it. Second book that I finished was one that I was already partway through from November/December, and that was Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Ames. I've picked this up because Cody absolutely loves this series. She really, really enjoys it. Kings of the Wild is the first in the series, Bloody Rose is the second. I think it's a duology, and this is following a band of mercenaries, retired mercenaries, that end up getting the band back together because one of the guy's daughters has been kidnapped. I think she's been kidnapped, and she wanted to become a mercenary like her dad, and something went wrong and they've ended up getting the band back together to go and get her. So they are rescuing her. Then I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was really, really good. It was so chunky and I was feeling really overwhelmed with it, so it took me a while. I kept putting it down and then struggling to pick it back up again, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really good, and I do recommend the book if you are into that sort of old guys sort of getting the band back together kind of thing. It was really good. It was a lot of fun, good journey, and I did enjoy it. Then I read Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed this. This is following Alex, who can see greys, essentially ghosts, and she's got this power and she ends up going to a prestigious university, but it is with a catch, and she's tasked with monitoring mysterious activities of Yale's secret societies. This went a different direction than I thought it was going to go, actually. So I thought we were following Alex and Darlington, which are the 2 main characters in this, which we're following Alex, but Darlington's not in this as much as I thought he would be, for reasons. He is in some sense, so this is sort of done in different timelines. So you get a chapter with current Alex, and then you get a chapter with jumping back to a scene in the past with Alex and Darlington. So things are happening. It's really, really good. You know, one of my favourite things about this book though are the characters' names. So Alex's name is actually Galaxy, and I'm really obsessed with that she's called Galaxy but her nickname is Alex, because I love the name Alex for a girl, but I'm not a huge fan of Alexandra. So I just love I just love that. And then Darlington's name is Daniel Arlington. Just the names pushed together. I was really obsessed with the names. It's such a weird thing to be obsessed with, but I just thought it was fantastic. I just thought it was really, really good. I know that Bobby over at Bobby Reads Too Much really loved this as well, and as it turns out, we have very similar reading tastes. So I haven't picked anything up from Leigh Bardugo before. My theory on this is that if you have read Leigh Bardugo before, you may not enjoy this as much as you thought you were gonna, because she's previously done like YA fantasy, whereas this is like adult fantasy. So you may not enjoy it as much, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I haven't picked anything up from Leigh Bardugo before. I am planning on picking up the Shadow and Bone trilogy soon, and then obviously Six of Crows. So yeah, I am planning on getting into a YA stuff, but I've started with this and I'm glad I've done it that way round. So I enjoyed it. 4 out of 5 stars. It was good. Then I read Capturing the Devil, which is the 4th and final book in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series by Kerry Maniscalco. I loved this entire series. I would probably give the whole series 4.5 out of 5 stars. Escaping from Houdini sort of brought it down a little bit for me. I didn't enjoy that one as much. However, in fact, I'd give the whole series 5 because there was a sneaky little novella in there called Becoming the Dark Prince that I just gave 5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was outstanding. If I could give it more stars, I would. But I really, really loved it, and that brought the whole series up for me. But Capturing the Devil, I gave 5 out of 5 stars for. This is rounding everything up and bringing everything to a conclusion with another mystery. It wraps everything up so nicely. I really enjoyed it. Lots of oh my gods, I did not see that coming. And yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. 5 out of 5 stars. I do highly recommend the series. Highly recommend the series. I will be rereading this at some point in the future. I really loved it. Then I read Are You Watching by Vincent Ralph. This is an arc. This came out on the 6th of February, so it is out now, and it is a thriller. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Following a young girl called Jessica Simmons, whose mother was killed when she was a young girl. She was killed by a serial killer, but Jessica's mum was the first of the murders. So we're following Jessica on this journey of trying to get on a show where the show will follow you around one day a week for a month. And if your show sort of wins out of all the shows, you will then get a 3-month segment where you get to tell your story. So other people within the show, there was this one guy whose brother was a suicide bomber and he'd killed a load of people, and he was trying to tell his side of the story. There were other people who had other things going on in their lives that were on the show. Obviously, Jessica's story was that her mother was killed by a serial killer called, what her and her dad have now called, the Magpie Man, and nicknamed him. He has since killed 12 people, I think it is, or 13 people. But this story picks up. She obviously gets a lot of traction with it, and it sort of picks up, and people want this guy dead because he's killed, well, not dead, but captured. He's not been captured, he's still out there. And this is like 10 years ago when her mum was killed. So she's trying to get, she's only like 17, she's trying to get this guy brought to justice or killed, one or the other. And it's quite frightening. I had to stop reading this in the evening because I was getting to a point where I was looking over my shoulder coming up the stairs and stuff, which I'm a scared cat anyway, so it's the sort of thing I might do on occasion anyway. But it freaked me out. It was really, really good. It had me on the edge and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I do highly recommend it. Keep your eyes out for it. It's one of those where it shows what good the internet can do rather than what bad the internet can do, which obviously we get a lot over in books, that social media can be a bad thing, whereas in this one it shows that social media can actually be a good thing, and I do highly recommend it. It's very, very good indeed. Then I read Get a Life Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This was Contemporary Book Club's pick of the month for January. So if you didn't know, I have a book club called Contemporary Book Club. I'll leave a link to all the information down below. Twitter, we do have a Discord group, but you do have to message me either on Twitter or on the Contemporary Book Club Twitter page to get the link. I just like to keep it a bit of a closed group rather than having loads and loads of people in it. So if you want to be in it, you've got to message me to get the link, which I think is a nicer way of doing it, and we appreciate sort of like the tight-knit group and closeness of it all. But I do highly recommend getting involved. We do readathons and things like that, and obviously we have a book every month, so I highly recommend. So this is following Chloe Brown, who has a disability. She has decided that she wants to go out on her own and live her life and write herself a list of things that she wants to do to help her get a life, because she just doesn't do anything. Her disability means that she, when she sees up and things like that, she gets tired very, very easily and she can't do quite a few things, but she is mobile and she can get about and things like that, so she just tries to do as much as she possibly can, sometimes pushing herself a bit too far. We are also following Red, who is the maintenance manager at the block of flats that Chloe moves into. So we end up following a relationship ensuing, but it's like enemies to lovers, and I just really, really love it. It's so, so good. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. There's a lot of smut in this, so just a heads up if you're going in blind, because I had no idea. There is no indication on the blurb of any smut, but I've really, really enjoyed it. It was very, very good, and I do highly recommend it. Talia Hibbert's writing is fantastic, and there is a second one coming out this year, I think, or the end of next year, I don't know, the end of the year I think it's coming out, which will be Chloe's sister. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be really, really good, and I can't wait to pick it up. But yeah, highly recommend. 5 out of 5 stars. It was fantastic. Good shout for our first book for the book club as well. But the next book that I picked up was 8 Will Fall by Sarah Harrion. This was sent to us in one of the Fairy loot boxes, so I followed along with the read along, and I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't fully understand what was going on. I didn't really get where it was supposed to be going or what was supposed to be happening. I think this is possibly a standalone. Just didn't really get it. I didn't fully enjoy it. I don't know, the premise was there, it just didn't, execution was not quite there for me. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, but just didn't quite do it for me, unfortunately, which is a shame. Next I picked up Help Me by Marianne Power, which is a self-help, not self-help book, and I loved this. This is the story of Marianne Power's journey with self-help. She picks like a 12-month block to write about her experience with self-help. It ends up becoming an 18-month block because this takes a massive toll on her, more so than she thought. So every month she was doing a different self-help book, and she was following it to the T. So it started off with her like on quite a bit of a high, and it was going really, really well, and then unfortunately she ended up on a massive low and like really, really hitting rock bottom. She already has a history with depression and anxiety, and unfortunately on this self-help journey it really, really brought it to the surface for her again, and she was alienating her friends and family and making stupid decisions, and it just was really hilarious in places, hard hitting in places. I was crying in this book. I actually laughed out loud several times in this book. It was fantastic. It really hit home, especially with the depression. Like for me, bloody hell, it really hit home in several places with me, and it was so good. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. This is easily going to be one of my favourite books of 2020. It's now 2020, not 2019. Of 2020. I just thought it was brilliant. It's non-fiction. Obviously we are following literally Marianne Power and her journey with self-help, so it's her writing her own story. You can't even believe that half the shit she did was actually true. Like honestly, there were parts in this where I got really frustrated with some of the decisions she was making. Other parts of my heart completely went out to her, and I just think she's fantastic. I think this book is fantastic, and I do highly recommend it, especially to those of you that are around my age range, so like late 20s, early 30s. Highly recommend this for you guys. So yeah, I obviously really enjoyed it. I tabbed it up. I just thought it was brilliant. It's the sort of thing I can go back to time and time again as a reference or as a pick-me-up, or you know, like it's just such a great book, and I highly recommend it. 5 out of 5 stars. I do recommend that. Thanks for Tandem for actually bringing that to my attention. They were doing a read along. They sent the books out to people. I wasn't signed up with them at that point, but they brought the book to my attention, and I was really interested, so I picked it up. So thank you to them for bringing that one to my attention. Absolutely brilliant. And Marianne's like a dream as well, so I've been chatting to her a little bit. She's a dream. Fantastic. Then I read The Last Witch, which is the first book in the Witcher series. This is a collection of short stories following Geralt of Rivia, and I really enjoyed this. I did get halfway through and then put the book down, and I was like struggling. I was listening to it on audio while following on my Kindle. I've since bought the book because it was like £3 for the adaptation tie-in cover, and I ended up watching the series halfway through reading the book because I was struggling, really struggling. I was like, I just don't know how I'm gonna get into this. I'm into it, but I'm really confused. The timelines are not very clear, and I watched the series, and similarly with the series, the timelines are not clear at all, and it's only up until about episode 7. There's only about 8 episodes. It's only up until about episode 7 that it all starts making sense. All the way through I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, don't get me wrong, I was enjoying watching Henry Cavill. It was a great time, but I didn't understand anything until episode 7. I am going to go back and rewatch it, but I managed to finish the book a lot easier once I'd watched the series. So I do highly recommend it. If you are struggling with the book, I do recommend watching the series and then going back to the book and seeing if that helps things a little bit. But maybe read the book before watching the series. I don't know which way is the best way to do this. But if you are struggling with the book, I do recommend watching the series. Don't hold off watching the series because you're wanting to finish the book and then pushing your way through the book, because you'll struggle. just jump into the series and it might make a bit more sense. Also with the series, stick with it until you get to at least episode 7. If you're still struggling at episode 7 and you want to give up, then give up, but you're only one episode away from finishing, so you might as well finish. But stick with it. It's very confusing unless you figure out that there is a timeline thing going on, which I didn't at all until episode 7. I was very behind on that one, but I highly recommend this one. I loved it. 4 out of 5 stars. It was really, really good. Really loved it. Told you nothing about the book there, I just told you about my enjoyment of it. Never mind. The next one that I picked up was The Girl Who Stole an Elephant by Nisra Farouk. This was Middle Grade Monthly's book pick for the month of January. If you didn't know, Middle Grade Monthly is a middle grade book club hosted by Gav from How to Train Your Gavin and Jade from JD Ray Reads. I'll leave a link in the description box down below for both of them and their Twitter so that you can go and check them out. I do highly recommend joining us on this journey. It's really good. This was the first book. This was following Chaya, who was a thief and a rebel and a bandit and a bit of a hero. I actually thought she was a bit stuck up. I didn't like her at all. As a character, she steals the Queen's jewels, but she's doing it for the best of reasons. So that's the only thing that I actually liked about her as a person. She's doing it for the community that she lives in and to help the people out there struggling the most. And she ends up, she's got a best friend called Neil, who was my favourite character in the book. She ends up making friends with this other girl who Chaya deems a bit of a snob, but she's actually really, really nice. And they end up on a bit of a journey. They also stole the Queen's elephant. They end up on a bit of a journey. I don't know, I didn't particularly like this. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I thought Chaya was obnoxious. I didn't particularly like her as a person. I thought the book was predictable and it just wasn't for me, which is unfortunate. I think it was fine nonetheless. It was a great journey and I really enjoyed Neil's character, and I completely understand why Chaya was doing what she was doing, but I just didn't like her. And I have to like my characters to sort of get on with the book. It's like at least half of the characters, and unfortunately in this one I just didn't. So 3 out of 5 stars for me. Then I picked up Scarlet, which is the second in the Lunar Chronicles series, the first one being Cinder. Cinder followed a cyborg called Cinder who lives in New Beijing, and she ends up working on the Emperor's son, the Prince Kai's bot, and she ends up working on that. There is a disease going on in New Beijing and they are testing on cyborgs to get a cure for that. And things happen and it's really, really good, and I really, really loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I actually think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I went on to Scarlet this year, who I've been buddy reading this whole series, not Cinder, but from Scarlet onwards with my friend Anna. So thanks to Anna for buddy reading this with me, because it's given me the push to get through the whole series, which I'm so glad I've done, because I've loved binging this with you. So it's been great. Scarlet has been my favourite out of the whole series. I really, really love this one. So these are fairy tale retellings. Cinder is obviously Cinderella, Scarlet is Red Riding Hood, and I just really enjoyed it. This is following Scarlet, who lives in France and she works on her grandmother's farm, and her grandmother has gone missing. She ends up meeting this guy in a bar that she delivers tomatoes to called Wolf, and a relationship sort of ensues from there, but she's trying to find her grandmother, and it's the story of her trying to find her grandmother and then coming across Scarlet, then coming across Cinder, who some shit has gone down with Cinder. I nearly spoiled that then. Some shit has gone down with Cinder. They end up crossing paths and the story continues, and I really, really loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I highly recommend the Lunar Chronicles if you are into sci-fi retellings and fantasy. Really recommend it. Then I read The Binding by Bridget Collins. This was Cody's pick for the buddy read that she wanted to do in the month of January. I was not a huge fan of this, which is a shame. This has been on my shelves for a really long time. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. We are following a boy called Emmett who is working in the fields when a letter arrives summoning him to become an apprentice at a binding place and a bookbinder's, and books are basically in this world a way of people to be able to tell their deepest, darkest secrets or things that are bothering them. They get bound into a book and then they forget them. However, if the books are destroyed in any way, the secrets will come rushing back to these people and they will know everything. A lot of triggers in here for sexual assault, rape, oh god, abuse of a of a child, God, abortion. There's all sorts of things going on in here that are very, very shocking. I wasn't expecting them at all. Be careful if those are triggers for you, because yeah, there's no trigger warnings in here for those things, so just be careful if those are the sort of things that trigger you in picking this up. They are quite brutal and detailed, so I would be careful of that. I enjoyed the way that this was split up, so it's split up in 3 parts. So we follow Emmett in the first part, we follow someone else in the second part, someone else in the third. So I like the way it was done in that way. So there's a queer relationship in here as well. So I do I recommend it? I don't know. It was good. It was okay. It had the premise of being a really great book. Again, execution just wasn't there for me, which is a shame. I don't know. I was just felt really let down by this. I think it's going to be one of my most disappointing reads of 2020. I just had really high hopes for it and it didn't get there for me. 3 out of 5 stars. Just didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to. First to Die by James Patterson. I'm buddy reading this whole series, the Women's Murder Club series, with Siobhan, which is a huge series. Book 19 just came out, so you know, we better get a shufty on, which actually we are, a lot faster than we thought we were going to. So I loved this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. This is following only female homicide inspector in San Francisco, Lindsay Boxer, and she does not have it easy. In this, she ends up with a bit of an illness that is quite frightening throughout the book. We get to learn a lot of that. So there's that going on in her personal life. Then there's the story of the murders that she's following. So we are following in this one a serial killer who likes to attack newlyweds, and Lindsay's trying to figure out what's going on. And this book broke me in the end. Honestly, it really, really broke me. I wasn't expecting it to. I was so invested in the characters, in Lindsay and the other girls that end up becoming in her murder club, like women's murder club, and I just was so invested in all of the characters. And honestly, it's gone with me into the second book, and I'm just struggling a little bit with carrying on with it, because I'm not, in a sense, like, I really, really love the series and I love James Patterson's writing, but I'm absolutely devastated by something that happens at the end and I'm struggling to let it go. So, I mean, Siobhan knew it was coming. She's read this before, but even she was still devastated by it. So I've really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it if you are into your thrillers and mysteries and murders and things like that. I highly recommend this series. It's very, very good. Then I read Carrie by Stephen King. This is not my first Stephen King novel. I have read Elevation and Pet Sematary and a couple of his short stories, but I read this one. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This is following Carrie, who is telekinetic, and she is bullied by her mother. Her mother thinks she's got the devil in her or a demon or something. Her mother beats the crap out. She's evil woman. Carrie is actually relatively normal. It's only that she becomes a bit of a psycho once she is attacked. So when her mother bullies her or attacks her, things start moving around and things go haywire. At school, she is generally disliked for being a bit weird, which she is, but one of the girls feels bad for her because happens in the ladies' showers, and she gets bullied by the other girls in the class. And this girl, although she doesn't do anything to stop it, she feels bad about the fact that she's been bullied and she didn't do anything to stop it. She tries to help her out and asks her boyfriend to ask Carrie out to the dance. End of year dance. Things go to shit. So it's really, really good. I really recommend it. It was more like a thriller to me, a psychological thriller, than a horror, but I really enjoyed it. It was good. 4 out of 5 stars. It's not too long either. It's one of his shortest books, I think, and it's his first one that he got published. So really enjoyed it. 4 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend. The Girl Who Speaks Bear by Sophie Anderson. I really, really loved this. This I gave 4 out of 5 stars. And this is following Yanka the bear, a girl who lives with her mamushka in a house in the forest. She is bigger than all the other kids, and she's called Yanka the bear because she's big. She's very, very strong. She was brought up by a bear in her early life, and her parents had sort of left her in the woods. She was brought up by a bear in her early life, and then her mamushka found her and brought her to live with her. She's brought her up ever since, and it's the story of Yanka trying to find out what's happened in her past. I loved this. It was a lot more hard-hitting than I thought it was going to be. I loved that every now and then there is a little story entwined within, so there are little stories within the story, and it was just really, really amazing because the little stories sort of bring the whole story together, and I've really, really enjoyed it. 4 out of 5 stars. 4 out of 5 stars. Sophie's writing is fantastic. I'm currently reading The House with Chicken Legs and I'm really enjoying it. It's very, very good. Again, more hard hitting than I thought it was going to be. Then I read I Heart New York. This is a reread for me, probably about the 5th or 6th time I've reread this. I want to reread the whole I Heart series, plus the What About a Girl series, because the characters cross over, so I'm going to read them in publication order. And the reason for doing this is that the final in the I Heart series came out last year. I've read it, but I want to reread the whole series now in one go. So I'm going to read one a month, and well, I'm going to end up reading 2 in 1 month because otherwise there's 13 books in total, so it'll take me more than a year otherwise. But yeah, I really love this. As usual, 5 out of 5 stars, highly recommend. Following Angela Clark, who finds her fiance in the back of the car with another woman at her best friend's wedding. She flees the country from London to New York. She ends up going to a hotel just randomly, heartbroken, with nothing but a Louboutins, her bridesmaid's dress, and a couple of bits of clothing and her laptop and phone. She is a writer. Up making friends with the concierge at the hotel that she ends up staying in, Jenny Lopez, who ends up becoming her best friend and, you know, life sorter outer, if that's what you want to call her. She helps Angela get back on her feet, and it's amazing. Really good story, friendship, romance, falling in love with New York City. It's everything that I ever wanted in a book, and it's the love of my life. I love it. I just love Lindsay Kelk and I Heart series. Then I read Crest, which is the 3rd in the Lunar Chronicles series. This highly recommend. I'm not going to go into what this is about because it just spoils it otherwise for the rest of the books. Previously, 5 out of 5 stars. Oh, maybe it was Crest that was my favourite one out of them, or maybe I just enjoyed it. Oh, it was Crest, sorry. Crest has been my favourite out of all of them, not Scarlet's. Apologies. I gave Scarlet 4 out of 5 stars. If I actually looked at my book in front of me like I should do. Crest is my favourite one out of all of them. Fucking useless. Sorry. Then I did another reread, and that was A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling with a twist. Harper has a disability, and I just loved all of the rep in this. I love the disability rep, I love the queer rep in it. I just love everything about this story. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It was my favourite book of 2019. I've given it 5 out of 5 stars. The second time round, in fact, I think I enjoyed it even more the second time round. It was fantastic, and I reread this in anticipation for A Heart So Fierce and Broken, which came out in January. So I loved this, highly recommend, do check it out. Then I read Critical Incidents. Thank you to Tandem Collective for sending me this and letting me be a part of the buddy read. We did a read along for this in January, and this is by Lucy Whitehouse. Following it, on the back it says Birmingham house fire, a young mother dead. The main suspect, her husband, but he's disappeared. A young woman has also disappeared, but the police don't seem concerned. Desperate, her mother turns to a less official channel for help. That less official channel? Performer D.I. Robin Loynes. Once a high flyer in homicide command at the Met, she's been sacked for misconduct and forced home to Birmingham, broke and disgraced. She thinks she's hit rock bottom, but she's about to learn that there's much further to fall, because the mother who died was Robin's best friend, and she will risk everything to find the truth. So Robin is trying to figure out what's happened to Karina, her best friend. She's also trying to figure out where Matt, is he called Matt? I think he's called Matt, has gone, Karina's husband, and also figure out where this young girl Becca has disappeared to as well. There's a lot going on, lots of characters. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. It was good. The ending nailed it for me, to be honest, but I did struggle a little bit with the nicknames in this. There are lots of nicknames in here. So Karina is Rin, Robin is Rob. Robin's daughter has got a couple of nicknames as well, but what confuses me is there's nothing wrong with having a nickname, and that's fine, but just pick which name you're going to go with. So in one paragraph you might have Karina and Rin mentioned at the same time, and it's very confusing, especially when you've got so many characters in a book like this, which you have, because she's tracking down leads and there's so many different people in and out of the book, so the nicknames can confuse it a lot. But otherwise, I really enjoyed it and I do recommend. We're getting there, guys. Hopefully we will get there soon. The next book that I read is Die Trying by Lee Child. This is the second published book in the Jack Reacher series by Lee Child. I didn't enjoy this one as much as I enjoyed Killing Floor in 61 Hours. I gave this a 3.5 out of 5 stars because it's extremely political. You didn't get as much from Jack as I'd hoped, because you're following a couple of other different characters on the political side of things, and I just wasn't a massive fan of it. It wasn't great. I just wasn't a huge fan. Jack Reacher is ex-military, and he just gets himself in these sticky situations all the time. He's like no fixed address. He's just constantly moving about across the country and traveling and seeing what trouble he can get himself in. I really love him. He's like a hero of mine, and I'm obsessed with the stories, but this one just didn't hit the spot for me, which is a shame. But I suppose there's like 23 or 4 of these now, and not every one of them I'm gonna like. I've really enjoyed all the short stories. I really enjoyed Killing Floor in 61 hours. In fact, 61 hours is probably my favourite so far. So this just didn't hit a nail on the head for me, but 3 out of 5 stars. I still recommend continuing with the series if you're reading it. You don't need to read them in order. I'm just choosing to possibly do so. Then I read Fairest by Marissa Meyer. This is like book 3.5, I think, in the Lunar Chronicles. So this is just a short novella following Queen Lavanna. So it's telling you Queen Lavanna's story. Queen Lavanna is the evil queen from Crest, who put Crest in the tower, and she's a bitch. I hate her, and this was a really good insight into her life and how she ended up the way she did. But she's a bitch and I hate her. 4 out of 5 stars. I recommend it. It was great. Then another reread, I reread Skyward by Brandon Sanderson, which is a YA fantasy sci-fi series, and I am loving this. I reread this in anticipation of reading Starsight, which I'm planning on reading this month during the month of February. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars the first time. I've given it 5 out of 5 stars the second time. I loved it even more the second time. It was so good. The audiobook is fantastic. I do highly recommend the audiobook for this. Mbot, who is the ship that Spencer, who is our main character, ends up finding, is Scottish in the audiobook, and it's fucking hilarious. I buddy read this with Siobhan. She isn't massive sci-fi fantasy sort of person, but she loved this. It even trumped Ready Player One, which is the only sci-fi that she's ever read for her. So this is her favourite sci-fi now. She absolutely loved it, and I'm just buzzing that she loved it so much. I highly recommend it. So good. Absolutely adore it. Read the audiobook, listen to the audiobook, it's so good. Then I read Predator's Goal by Philip Reeve. This is the second in the Mortal Engines quartet, and I really enjoyed this. We're continuing to follow our main characters from the first book, Mortal Engines, who are Tom and Hester, and a couple of other characters as well, and I really enjoyed this. I was shocked with the ending. I'm very excited to continue with the series. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I gave Predator's Gold 4 out of 5 stars, but I think that might be nudged up to like a 4.5 or maybe even a 5 after watching the film. Really loved the film, thought it was fantastic. The adaptation was really great, and I'm looking forward to, hopefully they'll continue with the adaptations of the books, but I'm looking forward to continue with the series. I do recommend it. This is like a steampunk dystopian semi-fantasy sci-fi. It's got a mix of everything in it, to be perfectly honest. I just recommend it. It's very good, but mostly steampunk dystopian kind of vibe, and I really recommend it. It's very good indeed. The audiobooks are great as well. Then I finally got round to A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kemmerer. Gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Didn't love it as much as A Heart So Fierce and A Curse So Dark and Lonely. I did not realise that we would only get 1 chapter each from Harper and Wren in this. We are following Gray's story with Leah Mara, who is a new character as well. There was a prediction I made in this about 50 pages in, and the prediction was correct, but I'm not mad about it. Actually, it worked out really well. I am shocked. I am absolutely shook with the ending of this, and I can't believe I have to wait another year for the final one. I'm honestly so shocked. I was not expecting it whatsoever. I did not predict that whatsoever, and I just really loved this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. This is following on from A Curse So Dark and Lonely, which I've just mentioned is the Beauty and the Beast retelling. Highly recommend, pick it up. Can't really tell you what happens because it would be a spoiler. Second Chance is the second in the Women's Murder Club series, which I've just mentioned First to Die of, and I really enjoyed this. Gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the first one. I think I was still a bit bitter about how the first one ended. James Patterson knows how to rip your heart out of your chest. Highly recommend this. This little girl is shot outside a San Francisco church, and she brings the girls back together. Reporter Cindy Thomas, Assistant DA Jill Bernhard, and medical examiner Claire Washburn, and they are trying to find the killer. and there is a lot more to this story than meets the eye, which is I think going to be the case with all of the Women's Murder Club series, but I do recommend. 4 out of 5 stars, it's very good. Then I picked up a couple of books that I don't own, so I picked these up on audio. So I read The Past and Other Things That Should Stay Buried by Sean David Hutchinson, and this is a queer dead ex-best friend comes back to life kind of story. So it's really good, and I do recommend it. It's very hard hitting. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Really hard hitting. I did think that the best friend, I can't remember their names now, which is really bad. I did think that the best friend, the female character, was just a bit stuck up her own ass. She's very me and self-centered. It was just really good. Highly recommend it. Very good. And then I read Come Tumbling Down by Shauna Maguire, which is the 5th in the Wayward Children series, and I loved this. It was so nice to be back with Jack and Jill again and follow a couple of the other characters. Kind of wish I'd reread the series first, because I felt a little bit lost with some of the other characters. I do remember Jack and Jill, but not some of the others. But it was really good. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I will reread all of these at some point, but I don't know how many more are to come, so we'll see. Then we've got Winter by Marissa Meyer, which is the 4th and final book in the series for Lunar Chronicles. This is following Winter, who is, I think, Snow White retelling. Yeah, I would say so from the apple on the cover. And really enjoyed it. 4 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend. Massive book, probably a little bit unnecessarily so. Did get a bit confusing. Sorry if the angle's changed, my battery died. So yeah, this did get a bit confusing in parts, because we've got all 4 of the girls from the books, and then their partners, and then other characters as well. Did get a bit confusing in places because they're all over the show in this one, but it was good nonetheless. Sorry, I'm out of breath, just ran downstairs for another battery. It was really good and I really enjoyed it. Loved the whole series. I thought it was fantastic. Gave this 4 out of 5 stars, and I do highly recommend the Lunar Chronicles series. And then finally, yeah, final book of January. I cannot believe I read this many books in January. It's absolutely shocking. Was The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. I bought this from a friend at Book Steph second hand, and I really wanted this so badly. I bought it before Christmas, but unfortunately there was a problem with the post. It ended up lost in the post, and then ended up back at Steph's, and then she sent it again because I bought some other books. So she sent it all together with some other books as well. Thank God it finally made it to me. We were worried it was lost in the post, which obviously when you're buying books off people second hand is a nightmare, because it's not like you can just replace it with the same book, you know, like if you get it from a shop, because you bought it from someone second hand. Thank God it made it here. Thanks to Steph for allowing me to buy this book off you. This has got deckled edges as well. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm obsessed with this book. This is one of my favourite books of 2020, absolutely. I don't know how I've never read it before. This is a Christmas Carol retelling, and I just loved it so much. We're following a girl called Holly who was visited by 3 ghosts, and to show her how selfish and spoiled she become, tried to convince her to mend her ways. She didn't, and then she died. So she 5 years later ends up working for the company Project Scrooge, in which this company every year go and do a Scrooge gets visited by 3 ghosts. She is the ghost of Christmas past, and she still hates her life. She's still a little bit spoiled, and it's the story of that basically. And just the twists in this really shook me. I was not expecting them at all. The ending for this was fantastic. I really loved it. I genuinely believe this is something that I'm probably going to want to reread every Christmas. So I might read this twice this year, because obviously I've read it in January. I missed the boat with reading it around about Christmas time just because the bloody posties lost it. But yeah, I wanted to read it even, I know January's a bit late, but I still wanted to read it in Jan, and I was so excited when it came through in the post, so I had to pick it up. So yeah, absolutely loved this. 5 out of 5 stars. I do think it's going to be one of my top books of 2020. I'm already saying that, and it's January. So yeah, absolutely loved it. Highly recommend, especially if you like The Christmas Carol. I love The Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, so highly recommend it. So that is my January wrap up. Thank God that is over, because it's been really intimidating me, and I've been struggling wanting to record it, along with a book haul that I've just recorded as well. So yeah, I loved pretty much every, almost, not quite. I really enjoyed the books that I read in January. I had such a good reading month. I can't believe I read 29 books. Absolutely shocking. Blown my mind. But it looks like I'm on course to maybe do something similar in February as well, so we'll see. But yeah, I had a fab reading month. I had quite a few 4 and 5 star reads, to be honest. Really good reading month, and I really enjoyed myself. So yeah, please let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books. Let's discuss them. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please give it a quick like if you did. I would really appreciate it. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and hello if you are new. Should have done that at the beginning of the video. And I shall see you next time. Bye for now.